I'm Calkoen, and my next goal, my dream is to take my story and the model of Caribbean mentoring to the world, to inspire change. And I want to inspire change not for what is wrong, but for the potential we have to achieve. When we go out there and we just make every day the best that it can be and focus on our strengths. So I've just got back from a month in New York where I didn't know anyone in New York before I got there. No one knew who I was, that's for sure. But my goal was to speak in New York in one of the biggest competitive environments for inspirational speakers. And after an 8-month build up, and I was there for 4 weeks, I walked away after 4 weeks having given 5 speeches to some of the biggest companies in the world. I'd had 25 meetings, and I very much created a base to go and keep building on. So I'm currently working for the Yes Disability Resource Centre. I have a goal of working with our CEO to really get that in a position of sustainability from a financial perspective so that they can carry on doing great stuff. One of the things I really enjoy is selling a dream and seeing that dream be transferred into funds so that people can keep doing what they do, because whether or not we like it, money does help for the world to go round. And so 2 years, finish Yes, and then I'm a man of the moment in terms of I take things as it comes. I know that I want to be making the biggest change that I can in this world. But in every moment, that's where I'm speaking. But I'm also totally open to the fact that things can change, because we're constantly inspired. We're constantly looking for ideas. I get excited by business ventures just as much as I get excited by community ventures. If there's a way in which the two can merge, that would be fantastic. So in a few years from now, I'd like to think that I'm travelling the world as an inspirational speaker. I'd like to think that the youth mentoring program, Caribbean, that doesn't ask what do you need to live a normal life, but says who do you want to be and how can we get you there. I'd like to think that Caribbean, as I am travelling the world, Caribbean is travelling the world and leaving stories of change, because of the cool thing about mentoring is mentoring provides an opportunity for people to get to know people who they may not have otherwise met. So if you can link people on a passion, something that one's achieved or one's aspiring to achieve, if you can link people on that perspective, then they really quickly get to see that it doesn't matter how we're born or what may happen to us in life. What matters is what we've got here and what we've got in our hearts. And when we connect those two, anything can happen. And for me, that's the greatest form of disability awareness, of pairing the likes of radio DJ with a young person who wants to be a radio DJ. The radio DJ's never experienced disability before. To be honest, probably really scared of it. In fact, often they've told me. But through coming together, they've quickly realised that actually there's nothing to be scared of. And this person is going to make a blooming good DJ one day. In fact, this person is going to bring a diversity to the team that's going to inspire all the other team members to be the best that they can be. But that young person with a disability isn't going to be the only inspiration within a team. That young person with a disability is also going to be inspired by the people who surround him or her. And these people don't need to be people with disabilities. And so what we quickly find is that we're not inspired by what we have in common. We're inspired by the differences that we have. We're inspired by what each other have overcome to be the best that they can be. And we only get that inspiration through difference. So the concept of carabiner mentoring came together through myself as a speaker, going out there, building networks, inspiring people to dream, inspiring people to think what they can give to the world. So this is where carabiner and my role as a speaker work really nicely side by side, because what I do is I go into a community and I build a network of people through speaking, and these people, I don't know what it is, but they so often come back to me and say, Cam, anything we can do, let us know. And so anything you can do, you can become a mentor. Anything you can do, you can tell the older person who you want to be. So the plan is go into a community, inspire them, inspire young people, inspire people to be mentors, and then simply link the two through carabiner. Find someone who can coordinate the match. All the documents, all the processes are in place, it's ready to go, and it's basic. The thing with mentoring is not too complicated, because at the end of the day, all it's about is bringing two people together, and two people are coming together all the time. They meet, they go out, they have a mutual friend, they go out. The only difference with mentoring is you need a few processes to make that feel a bit more comfortable, because they've been brought together rather than naturally come together. But the goal with carabiner is that at the end of the year, and it is 1 year mentorship, that these people then go off into the world together as friends. Carabiner is not about creating a program and going, we've got 200 people in the program. Carabiner is more about creating social change and presenting a platform for people to then be working together, who wouldn't have otherwise met, but who have become incredibly resourceful to one another. My passion is to really get out there and inspire as many people in this world to look outside and see opportunity and potential, and to embrace everything that the world's got to offer. So I inspire it, but in terms of inspiring it, I've also got to find the tools and create the resources for people to be the best that they can be and embrace the opportunity. So I'm passionate about mentoring, youth development, supporting young people with disabilities, and just seeing everyone, whether you're a sportsman or a CEO or a school teacher or a parent, being the best that you can be. Growing up, I was always really positive, and I think that comes down to I had incredible parents who supported me to focus on what I can do in life. And having cerebral palsy, there were a lot of people saying these are what Cam can't do, or what he needs to live a normal life, whatever normal is. And Mum and Dad just said, look boy, who do you want to be, what do you want to do? And so at primary school, I was your all-round student. I was popular, I did sport, I did everything. But as I was becoming a teenager and having typical teenage issues, but it was magnified by the fact that I have this disability, and very much started not wanting to be the kid to drop a ball or miss a catch, or I didn't want to cause conflict among my social group by being the only kid with a disability. It was like, this is weird, and this is what I was thinking. So I went through a tough time, and then some really valuable support came to me in terms of mentors, people I call my giants, who reminded me who I was, who reminded me to focus on my strengths, who said, you've got one shot at life, this is life as you know it, what do you want to create? And from there I was encouraged to get back into sport. My goal was to become a Paralympic gold medalist. I got to a world championship level. I was in the top 10 in my sport. Life was good. Life was everything it was when I was younger, just better because I was now older and more independent, and I could enjoy more of it. And at a stage where I was in the top 10 in my sport, I thought this is cool, but there's got to be a bigger picture, and I was competing against athletes with disabilities, and that was fantastic. That created the even playing field. But for me, I wanted to live in a world where my disability wasn't my only ticket, where I could actually compete against the best of the best, whatever their ability was. They just chose to do something. So I think I got into inspirational speaking. People say motivational speaking. I prefer the inspirational, because motivation comes from within, and all you can do is inspire that to come out. So that's very much what I do in all aspects of my life. And I like to see myself as a connector. You know, I love building networks and then seeing how individuals can come together to further who they are as people of this world. So where life really started to blossom for me was when I started a new high school, and I was in the fourth form, and I went to my high school, and my principal asked me a question. He said, "Cam, what can you do for our school?" And now this was the first person other than my parents to really say, "What can you do for us?" And at first my response in my head was, "What do you mean? What do you want me to do for your school? This is your school, why don't you teach me?" But when I came to realise this guy had the biggest school in New Zealand, he wanted it to be the biggest success it could be, and therefore he needed staff and students who saw the world as theirs, who were prepared to embrace opportunity. And because he'd asked me what I wanted to be, I started looking at school as a whole new place. I started seeing school as a place of opportunity, a place where it wasn't about doing English and mathematics and science. It was a place where in one day I could be a poet, a mathematician, a geologist, a scientist, and an athlete. And I mean, seeing whatever environment that we're part of, seeing it as a place of opportunity, a place where we come in as one and we leave as another, how amazing is that? How incredible, and that's what I encourage as many people to do. While I was at school, I was just meeting and I was just getting out there, because I wasn't Cam the kid with a disability, I was Cam the athlete, Cam who did what other kids did. And teachers and parents would say, "But this was awesome, you know, this is what school is about. School is about fostering young people to be who they are." And so when you get people who are just pushing that little bit harder, standing a little bit higher, and a lot of my best friends they were inspirational to me, and so it worked as a nice circle. You know, you surround yourself by great people, and that fosters, and when that greatness is identified as leadership, and that leadership gets recognised at a higher level, and it gets recognised and you feel good for it. But why you feel good about recognised is, you know, that it's kind of coming down, it's encouraging the guys who are starting college as a third former. And so when you're at a senior level at school and the third formers are coming through it, it's really cool to be that peer support person, to encourage them to start seeing school as a place of opportunity. And that's where I really started to learn about leadership and the power of it, and the privilege of being identified as a leader. You know, it does shape your life, it does make you think, but it pushes your ambition. You know, I'm 28. I still very much like to think I'm at the start of my journey, and it excites me. But the harder I push, the more I stand out there, the more I take on. But I mean, life just can't be going in any better direction. Life is what we make it, and I choose to make it awesome, mate. I look up outside every single day, and I see opportunity, and I see potential, and I don't see strangers, I see potential friends, and I just think that's a great way to see the world. You know, I come across people on a daily basis who are focusing on the things they can't do, or feeling incredibly disabled by things that aren't necessarily a physical disability, but other things. But they also choose to focus on that. They choose to spend so much energy on the things they can't do, whatever that is. And I believe that it takes just as much energy to focus on a negative thing as it does as a positive thing. In fact, focusing on the negative takes up a lot more energy because it makes you tired, it makes you depressed, it makes you heavy. Where, yeah, I mean, life is fantastic. I love it. So think about what disables you. Is it a disability or an impairment, or, I mean, yeah, I'm just thinking about it, because it's such a biggie. I believe that everyone's got some form of disability, and now some disabilities are maybe more obvious, are seen more. But I remember I was at a conference one day and I'd spoken, and I got a great reception. I got a standing ovation. What better could I want? And I actually stuck around after this conference, and a group of men came up to me the next morning. I'd stayed the night, and they said, "Cam, we've been thinking about what is it that makes people with disabilities such as yourself and other great role models, what makes them succeed?" And he said, "We've come up with an answer." And I thought, wow, what is this going to be? You know, I haven't really thought of it, but tell me what your answer is. And he said, "We've realised that because you have a physical disability, you don't have as much opportunity as the rest of us, and therefore you've got to embrace what you've got." And now at the time I kind of nodded and I smiled and I said, "Oh, yeah, well," but when I think about that more, you know, what was that? Was that him really being true and honest, or is it him looking at his own life and going, something's disabled me from achieving who I want to be? Because I'm a strong believer, and I wake up every day and I think, what am I going to do? You know, it's not because I don't know what to do. It's just, do I work on my business first? Do I ring up my girlfriend first? Do I go and clean my car first? Do I book a holiday? Do I start looking where my next investment is going to be? You know, these are the kind of things that I do. My challenge is not my disability. I was born with my disability, and so if I'm going to let it be my biggest impairment in life, I'm not really living, am I? So my biggest challenge is when I was at school, how am I going to pass my exam? How am I going to make my business a success? How am I going to ensure that I'm living every single day to their max? And I wouldn't say that those challenges are much different than anyone else in life who chooses to be the very best that they can be, who chooses to go on and see the world as a place of opportunity. And seeing the place of opportunity, it's not about having an idealistic outlook on life, because this life, here we are, is life as we know it. And so why can't it be ideal? Why wouldn't it? And the only thing that's going to make it ideal is you. There's going to be people who come into our life who influence who we are and what we do, and maybe support us through tough times, or maybe hurt us in a way, whatever way. But those people are going to come and they're going to go. And what they leave with you, you then have a decision how that influences who you're going to be. If you're going to let that disable you and limit opportunity, that's your choice. If you're going to let that experience lead on to you becoming a Paralympic gold medalist, a world champion, a successful on the cover of a Forbes magazine, whatever it may be, you choose that as well. And that's exciting. When I look at life and I look at leadership and I look at some of the most powerful leaders in sport, business, politics, and they've often got a very incredible story. It's a story of overcoming some form of adversity and quite often being told that you can't do something. But they've gone on and achieved it anyway. And I also meet parents who again, kind of, they lower the bar in terms of what the young person can achieve. They look at them as, this isn't normal, this isn't what I expected, and it's the biggest disability in the world. And therefore, their attitude, they're trying to help their kid, but in a massive way, they're disabling the kid even further by talking about things like normality. What is normal? When I was 14, I received a letter from a guy who was a television presenter. He was actually my biggest role model. And he wrote me a letter, and inside that letter he said, celebrate what makes you different. And he followed that up by saying, the people who count in this world look for difference in people. You know, how boring would it be if we were all the same? If we were all the same, we wouldn't have the amazing stuff we have around us today. If we were all the same, we wouldn't have put a man on the moon. We wouldn't have Olympic champions. We wouldn't have leaders. We need this diversity in our culture in order to move forward. We need to celebrate that, and we need to be excited by challenge, and excitement can be confused with difficulty, with butterflies. I was speaking to a performer yesterday, and he said every time I go out on stage, I'm incredibly nervous. I'm shaking. I'm needing to go to the toilet every 10 minutes before I perform. But what he realised is that nervousness is actually an excitement, or is a precursor to the excitement of the feeling he gets from entertaining a room full of people. So there's another thing, is our nerves are the things that make us a little bit scared. Is it because we really are scared, or is it because we're so excited that if everything comes together, that's going to be the best drug in the world? That's gonna make you just feel 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And that's what it does. I know when I speak in front of an audience of people, and some of my biggest audiences have been 2,500 people. And as a kid with a speech impediment who was once told that one of the things Cam will challenge with is communication, you know, I'm incredibly nervous before these talks, but I go into it and I break the ice as soon as I can, and from that moment on, I'm flowing, and I get to see that. I see a very interesting life. I see a life where I walk down the street and no one knows who I am, and I know they're looking at me a little bit strange, or they're thinking things, and sometimes they even say stuff. But then I get in front of an audience of 2,500 people, and I've been given 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 45 minutes to share who I am, to share a story, not a sympathetic story, but a story that is encouraging them to be the best that they can be. And by the end of that 45 minutes, I have 2,500 new friends. There's 2,500 people in that room who the week before would have walked past me in the street, maybe pointed at me, maybe laughed at me, maybe spoken to a friend, maybe asked me out on a date. You just don't know. But what happens is you give someone an opportunity to share, and you learn about them. So, but why does that need to happen in a room where you are the speaker? That's my biggest question to life, is we can solve so many of the issues in this world and make it so much better than it is by being open, by sharing stories, by doing things like this. that take down that nervous barrier and make it into a feeling of excitement